paying everyone 50 grand a year to sit at home sending emails to each other and doing fucking Zoom calls. This isn't value. This is bollocks. And these are all the signs of a society about to collapse. So,
interesting.
Not a good sign.
You've just completely ruined my life. That's basically what I do.
It's adding up to about 200,000 sats, which is...
I know, to be fair,
that allocation of Bitcoin, you just spunked it on your garden. I hope it's worth it.
It's going to be funny. We're going to look back, aren't we, in 5 years and go, that was like a 400 grand garden.
You'll be buying a boat that lives inside my boat. Where's your whiskey? Proof of whiskey. There it is.
Proof. Again, sponsored by the Ardmore. I was just looking at this. This is the pod whiskey, right? Yeah. Not much left.
God, you're doing well. That's still got like a quarter in.
Oh yeah, I only drink it. It's a pod whiskey.
Yeah, but on Tuesday we did nearly a 3-hour pod, and I made the mistake of bringing the whiskey next to me. I drank half of that bottle. I checked it. I was like pouring one out tonight. I'm like, I only brought this on Monday, and it's like literally 3/4 gone. I'm getting this whiskey habit on these podcasts. I don't like drinking alone, so I'm
safe.
I'm technically alone, but like I'm just chatting to people over the internet. And
to be fair, I've listened to 2 hours of that pod. You got 43 minutes left.
Yeah, it's a bit of a long one, that one, but I think it's pretty good. What do you think?
It's really good. I really enjoy it, and it's actually inspired me massively. I was really excited to start talking today because you've gone back to discussing how and like why you got into it, and it was very interesting listening to Dr. Evil 10% talking about and how you use him as a milestone, and it rang so true. So for a bit of background for this, it's your other part, the other pod you do, which is the 4Bs. And we were discussing about when you sort of believed in Bitcoin. So again, I did question you as well when you said that you got it back then. I recall back to those days when you were first in on it. You liked it, but I honestly don't believe you could put hand on heart and say you believed it was the way the world was going to go right then. I don't know what you think. Because the impression I got from you, and I didn't, because I had no sight of any of that. At that point, I was literally sheep. I was blind following you when I bought in, and I think that's the difference. You know, when you were talking about your mates and how they're like, and I really quite like what you said. Gaz is either a millionaire today or he's wrecked tomorrow. That's like we don't know. So just because you're doing it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do because you're always on the edge. Going, I believe it's going to work. I believe in me, and I'm going to go for it. Whereas everyone else is like a lot more risk adverse. So they're thinking, well, the risk of it going up to the moon, 1 in 100. The risk of getting wrecked, 1 in 10. I don't like those odds. I'm going to go for the stocks and shares, and that's what everyone does. Then they kick themselves now, don't they? But to be fair, you've been able to screen capture and go back to them and go, look, this is what I did tell you, and it's exactly what I have done. And I've given up doing. You even came to the conclusion. I think Ross said he was like, no. It was Sir Neverlook. He said how people go, oh, he's on about Bitcoin again.
Yeah.
And you don't like getting to that point, so you just think, you know what? Screw you. If you're not interested, then I'm not interested talking to you about it. Just have fun, staying put. And I think that meme is the best thing ever.
It is. It's perfect, isn't it? Because it's unfortunate because you technically mean it. Like you will end up being poor at the end of this. So just have fun. Like it's a nice way to exit the conversation. And then, and I disagree with them when they, and probably you at this point as well, because I think actions speak louder than words anyway. And when I look back to 2016, what were my actions? And number one, I've gone back and I've found those screenshots and I've sent them into those guys. So they've realized I'm talking about inflation. I'm talking about the money printer.
Did you talk about the money printer then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, I knew it because the thing is, when I actually was going through the learning process and not really talking about it, like I don't tell people stuff that I'm not sure about. I'm not one of these guys that will just the latest thing I hear,
Billy
straight away I
bullshit.
start talking. So I had been studying Bitcoin for probably 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I know you had done that.
And it hadn't hit my head. But by the time I had gone, I'd already done the experiment buying a little bit. And that's when I didn't get it. That's when I didn't
That was
get
at $200, wasn't it?
But then by the time it got to 2016, I had liquidated all my shares in the company that I worked for and converted them all into Bitcoin. So this is the thing. People now try and go back and go, you didn't get it back then. It's like, I fucking did, because why would I have put my entire net worth into it?
No, to be fair, I'm thinking.
I think I just YOLO'd in and got lucky. Even people that know me well think I YOLO'd in. I'm like, no, if I'd have YOLO'd in aimlessly, I'd probably be a billionaire now, because I'd have done it 5 years earlier and I would have 100x more Bitcoin. And yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
No, I don't think
I didn't YOLO in. I wish I had YOLO'd in. But the thing is, if I had YOLO'd into Bitcoin, then I'd have probably lost my money on other things that were scams, because Bitcoin looks like a scam when you first find it. It took me 3 to 5 years for it to actually click. And then by the time it did, I went all in. And then I felt, once I had gone all in myself and gone, right, I have enough skin in the game now that I feel safer talking to you and to others, because I'm not recommending something I wouldn't do myself. And I never said to anyone, go all in. I said, start DCAing, go in short, go in nice and small. So,
no, I think what I'm going back to is it's probably pre-16. I remember the time we were sat round the table pre me going traveling for the year, and we were discussing it then. And that's probably what, absolutely right. You know, when it come to 17, it was 2017 when I got it, wasn't it?
Yeah, halfway through there, yeah.
Yeah, it was at like $3 and a bit grand. And then you were all in. I remember that, because you would just like you say, liquidated those shares and you put a massive amount in. And I remember just how fun it was on that stag do. You were in bed and you were just going, ding, oh, Bitcoin just hit 1,000, ding, 1,500. Like, Jesus, I need to buy now, because it could be $3 grand in a minute. And sure enough, 10 days later, it tripled, didn't it?
Yeah, it's back in the days where I used to have notifications on. I switched them off quite quickly, because it's just too
it's all the time.
Bitcoin hitting price alerts is just, you can do it for the first probably year, and after that, you're like, I need to switch these off, because
it's getting tiring.
Like, no matter whether it's up or down, it's like, I just don't want to know. Just I'll review it maybe like a couple of times a day, but if I let my phone dictate my life otherwise, I'm like, oh god, how much money have I made or lost?
Yeah.
Last 10
minutes. And it's kind of immaterial anyway, isn't it?
It's not going to sell. Yeah, if you've got no intention of selling, there's literally no point in even looking at it. Yeah.
No, but it's just nice just to see, because you know, when I was in the daylight today, I was just thinking, come on, chop.
No, we hit 50k again today.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, of course it did. Yeah. 36.2, wasn't it, in English? So so it's I have conversations with people. I used to more often than I did now. Like my mates from home, I did used to speak to, and I got very close with one of them to doing it, but then it hit 12 grand after being 8 grand, and then it was too much.
I'm waiting for the dip.
Yeah.
No, it's 35k. It's like, no, I'm definitely waiting for a dip. I could have got it at 12, and I was waiting for a dip at 12, and it's like,
yeah. Well, interestingly, I met someone on the MBA that had, was into it, and I can't remember even how it came up, but we started talking about it, and I said, it's 40 now. It was back when it was 40, the first little ride up, and he was like, and it had gone up to like what 47 or something, but it was gone at 40. I was like, yeah, I didn't think it was going to go much lower right then. I thought it was going to go a bit higher before it came down. And he was like, now I'm waiting for a dip, and then it went to 20, and then I was re-talking. I was like, have you bought in? Then it's your dip. He went, it's going further down. I was like, okay, it's one of those. The dip to 10k. Well, it might be 5k in a minute. It might be 1k again. Oh no, it's going bust. And that's the funny thing, isn't it? We always say it as humans, we like to see a moon before we buy in, because it's obviously safe then. As soon as it's going down to zero.
Yeah.
And
and every single cycle, people say the same, don't they?
They do.
They either make the right decision. And normally people have to watch it one cycle, and then you'll end up YOLOing in at about 100k, even though he rejected at 40 and at 20. The thing is, when something goes down from like 47 down to 20, unless you really get it, that's a very dangerous buy. I wouldn't.
It is a very dangerous buy.
If that's a stock or a share and it's just 60% down in the space of a month, that is not a positive sign. that is a very negative sign that suggests there's something fundamentally wrong with that company or that asset. That means that if it's gone down 60%, and who knows, it could go down another 60, then another 60, then another 60. And before you know it, you're 98% down. So it's a very sensible thing to be resistant to that. But when you get it, you realize, oh, what drove that down? And you're like, oh, there was some Elon FUD from Tesla, China ban at the time, so a load of miners sold their coins. You just go, right, has this fundamentally changed the strength of Bitcoin? China don't like Bitcoin, or China don't like anything, fine. A load of morons are following what Elon does, and he started tweeting about Dogecoin, not Bitcoin. Does that change the fundamentals of Bitcoin? No, neither does. Right, Bitcoin's still solid, but it's gone down 60%. All that means is it's on sale.
It's exactly
on sale. That's all it means. It's that's the thing. You can't go through those kind of analytics if you don't understand Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that's always the issue that the people on the edges don't get, because they suddenly think, oh, the energy thing, or the security, or the fact it's used for criminal activity, or all these types of things. They think, oh, these are the reasons why it may have gone down. Suddenly this scam is being exposed. It's like, no, the scam has not been exposed whatsoever. It's just some people sold some Bitcoin and they happen to have a lot of it. So they took the price down quite far. But the fundamentals are just as strong as they were before. It's just on discount. It's on sale.
Yeah.
Stack as many sats as you can.
Well, ironically, it's on sale now. Even when it's going up, it's on sale, because I think you go back to the raw fundamentals of, there's only 21 million. There's 48 million heirs in the world. 48 million millionaires in the world. Therefore, do the math. Less than 1 Bitcoin per millionaire. So, and then if you go to the world, that's just even scarier. What a small fraction is that's your entitlement, which I think you said was 0.02, didn't you?
Yeah, 200,000 sats. Yeah, so 0.02. Yeah, 200,000 sats. You divide 21 million by the 8 billion people. Yeah.
And what is it? $500 right now?
Yeah, about $500 worth of money will get you that. Yeah.
Yeah, so just that's what as well I thought it'd be worth bringing into this for the newbies. We've been off for a few weeks. It's good to reiterate that. Everyone gets obsessed with being a millionaire now, but you can't put 10 quid in and become a millionaire. You'd have to put £1 million in now to be a millionaire. It's not magic, and you have to put a substantial amount of money in. And people honestly just think, what's the point? I love the point of, if it 10x is from now to 100k, what would it be, 400k, I may as well put it into Dogecoin or something else, because that's the 10x is easier for that. But again, it's the raw principles of, it's not, because there's billions of them in circulation. Yeah. So, which was one of the things that I picked up on. I heard, I think it was a tweet. It is one tweet that I saw a while ago, and I didn't really get it. And the tweet went, what would you rather? A Bitcoin now or a Saturday for the rest of your life? And I think it's the most retarded thing ever, because it's like, I'm guessing he's going like physiological or whatever. It's going, oh, you learn more every day or something. I'd much rather the Bitcoin right now. Yeah. 1 Bitcoin now is way better than 100 million days of having one Saturday. What's the bloody point in that?
Yeah, it's a retarded offer. Of course you take the one, because the only way you could make that deal even slightly appealing, like, because you're not going to live for 100 million days. So yeah, you're going to get less than the Bitcoin. And
exactly.
And of course, so the way to say it really is to go, if it's to make it more tempting, I would say 1 Bitcoin now or 0.1 Bitcoin every year for the rest of your life. Now that makes it more interesting, because after 10 years, you're now profit. So that's now a time preference thing. So this is like do you take 1 marshmallow out of the bag now, or can you wait a day and come back and have the whole bag? And this is where people that are high time preference grab the marshmallow, because they do this experiment on kids. They do them on like little 5-year-old kids, and they do this experiment. They leave them in a room with a pack of marshmallows. They go, you can eat one now, or you can wait an hour and I'll come back in an hour. And if you haven't eaten any, you can take the bag with you. And they did the experiment on these kids, and then they looked to see how successful they are in the future. And it tended to be the kids that could wait were more successful than the kids that couldn't, because it was just an indication of, do you want instant gratification now, or do you want to save for the future and get more? And obviously that's a big part of life. If you can earn money and then not just spend it all and invest some, and fundamentally it means you're going to make your money work for you whilst you sleep, and you're going to invest it. You might start a business, but all these things are, setting a business up is super expensive, cost a lot of money to set up a business, but then hopefully in the future it returns that times 100. So that's the
take
whole,
a bit of time to break even.
What you could just do is go and buy a fast car instead of setting up the business. Instant gratification from the outside, everyone thinks you're successful, but fundamentally that's like that car's going to go to zero over the course of the next 20 years. It's going to be worthless. Whereas that business could also go to zero, could absolutely go to zero as well, but has the potential to 100x. And it's the people making those bets that ultimately are going to get the rewards. So that's the same with that. What that tweet is trying to do is do that, but they gave a stupid.
It was a stupid one.
That no one's going to live for 100 million. So it's done.
I would snap your hand off for your Bitcoin, mate. And you reply going, "Well, you just don't get it." I said, "What? You're a bellend."
Yeah, that would make sense. 0.1 Bitcoin for a year would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be an interesting shout, because you'd have to wait 10 years to get your reward. And well, it's just interesting. But the other thing that I've noticed in modern era is the electronic payments. And I was just thinking, I went to Villa the other week and everything was cash. They've got your membership cards in order to get priority tickets and stuff, which you can top up. So it's like a bit of a top-up card. And then you can pay with everything using your card beep, beep, whilst you're in there. And I just think that is fundamentally paving the way to Bitcoin transactions, because straight away there's no cash on that. It's a number that you put on from your card through the online website, and you have 10 tokens or 100 points. You can buy a beer for 200 points. It's exactly the same principle. And I think we're slowly, and I think this is where COVID has massively sped all this up. And the more that we become a cashless, paperless society, the easier the transition will be. Because I remember as a kid, you would always enjoy sort of counting your coins and counting your coppers and stuff like that. You don't do that now. You already moved on from the spare change jar, which is like your Revolut, and I'm sure the other banks doing something similar as well, where you can collect spare change. So straight away, we don't have cash. And when collections go around at work, I've never got any cash, so I just transfer the person money. It's making this transition so easy. It's already there. There is no money anymore. We don't use it. I just think it's something that I think is going unnoticed. People have just adopted to it. Even ice cream vans now have a cash machine, have a cash point thing. Beep, beep. And we're looking at El Salvador, even the Mango Man has. So I think without us realizing, all the people that will be like, "Oh, it's not going to work," I think proof is actually happening right now.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, because there's a lot of people, especially people in El Salvador. Obviously, they're rolling out mobile phones and apps purposefully, because it was taking people, if they wanted to pay their electricity bill, it was taking them 3 hours to pay it. They'd have to get a bus into town with their physical cash, go to a actual electricity company, queue up, pay their bill in cash, and then get the bus back out of town back to where they live. And that would be like a 3-hour round trip, and basically half a day of their life just to pay their electricity bill. Whereas now there's little QR codes on the electricity bill, they just scan it and they pay it in Bitcoin just like that. So yeah, I think the more people that have mobile phones and are paying on payments, the better. And I think in the third world countries where they haven't been connected, it's definitely going to make it easier for them to adopt Bitcoin. The downside of cash, because I must admit, I quite like cash for paying. If I'm going to pay in fiat, I quite like it, just because it's anonymous. It's the truly last bit of kind of privacy we have in the existing banking system, because you can walk around and you can pay in cash. And if you think about, there's a couple of things that you probably buy in your life.
That's a good point, actually.
That are useful. Say I wanted to just buy something off you, it's just a transaction, and or a family member or a friend. Sometimes you just go, you know what? It might be for, I don't know, a relatively large amount of money. It might be £500 or £1,000, and who knows what the tax implications of that are. You just You kind of just want to be like, you know what, I don't really want to have to worry about that. So how about I just give you the £500 and I'll give it you in cash, and I'll take your sofa, I'll take your computer, whatever it might be. And no one needs to know. Yeah, it's just a friendly transaction. No one's setting up a business here. No one's trying to break the law. But weirdly, what you are doing, there might be some weird tax law you are breaking. And once cash is gone and they do retire it fully, the only way for me to get you to that money in the existing financial system, if you ignore Bitcoin, is by paying you through the bank. And now suddenly every single transaction is on there. And then they can monitor it. They can take a look to see what these types of transactions are. When you just think about it, right, there's hundreds of billions every year are spent buying drugs. And 99.9% of these drugs are just people buy them, they have a good time. They're recreational, and people just partying on the weekend. I'm very interested to see what will happen when they outlaw cash. How the hell do you buy your drugs from your local drug dealer now? Because you just want to, you're going off to Glastonbury, you want a couple of pills. People just go down to the local drug dealer, give them 10, 20 quid, and they go off. Imagine having to do contactless for that. You're not going to do it, are you? So weirdly, I think if they did ban cash, it's going to be a massive boom for Bitcoin and other coins, because people are going to have to pay in that.
Do you not think, though, it would just go ledger?
Well, exactly. Yeah. So you're going to have a cryptocurrency, yeah. And then you're going to have your coins in a wallet that are attached to you. And then you're going to have to pay like that. Because once you get rid of cash, you can't use the existing financial system. So you're going to have to get out of that somehow. And use another means of doing it. And you're going to have to make sure that the Bitcoin or whatever you're using isn't KYC'd under your name, because that's still just as bad. You can see the transactions on the blockchain. So I think it's going to be a super interesting time, because I think, in the next 5 years or so, it wouldn't surprise me if they ban cash, because already, because of COVID and the fact you can supposedly spread the virus on notes, which is obviously garbage, but they're using that as an excuse to then push people into 100% electronic payments. And then once they do, there's no reason to have cash now. So once that goes, all these billions and billions of illegal activity that people just do to run their life. I think a lot of people don't realize they're criminals, even though they are. Even just like buying like a dodgy skybox and all these kind of like little things that people do, like, back in the day, the odd DVD and all these little things that people do. You would never put that payment on your card, would you? You just would never do it. And without cash, you're going to have to, unless you go into Bitcoin and then put some Bitcoin into the Lightning wallet, pay over Lightning, anonymous, untraceable, private transaction.
That's the way to do it, isn't it? Yeah, it's interesting. Poor drug dealers. They have to get a job, maybe.
Yeah, they'll find a way. They'll find a way. Because the problem is, like, I was talking about this before, but the problem is, like, the people that tend to sell drugs and stuff, they're out of the system. They can't get back in. Right? They normally come from broken, poor backgrounds. They already have a criminal record. And what I hate about the existing system is the second you have a criminal record, especially for drugs, no one will hire you. So what are they supposed to do?
More drugs.
They have to stay in the criminal world, because I was talking to some person before, and they work for Just Eat doing all the delivery things. They do CRB checks. They do criminal record checks to deliver takeaways. And she was saying how like 10 a week. They start the job and they start. Then their CRB checks come back. 10 people this week had flagged up, and she had to bring them in and fire them. And they're begging, going, please don't, because if I go back into that world, I'm gonna have to keep selling drugs. This is what's keeping me on my feet. And Just Eat don't want anything to do with them. They sack them. I'm like, what has got having a drug charge against you got anything to do with delivering takeaway?
Brand image, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah, no one wants to be associated with that's got involved in drugs. And I understand it if it was something to do with children or working around drugs, say in a hospital. Maybe you'd be like, right, we can't really trust them here. They might grab a load and try to sell them on the side. I understand those types of, I wouldn't want them to be a primary school teacher and stuff. Fine. But delivering takeaways, come on, like no one else wants to do that job. It's a horrible job cycling around out there on next to no money. And if they're not allowed that type of job, you're basically telling these people you're unemployable.
Yeah.
So unless you're happy earning 70 quid a week on the dole, we don't want you in society. And no one, and these people are quite ambitious, like entrepreneurs. They don't want to sit on the sofa just watching Vic and Jeremy Kyle all day. They want to get out and earn a living, but yet we don't let them. So of course they have to fall back into what they know, what they can earn good money, which tends to be, theft or drugs. And it's like, what are we doing as a society? If you're not going to try and even attempt to rehabilitate these people, then why are we surprised that these people exist?
Well, it's the same thing with homeless people, isn't it? You can't sign on, you can't get a GP, you can't get a reference until you got a home. You can't get a home until you've got somewhere that employs you to reference you and give you a character statement. How would you start? And then we wonder why homeless is so rife. And same principle, isn't it? If you haven't got a home, you can't get a job. Full stop. You're knackered. And we do neglect that type of person, don't we? And that's not even the juggies. That's just the unfortunate people who haven't got a home. Yeah. There was on the side note, there's somebody, I think it was also from Bitcoin Twitter. Someone had mentioned if someone buys 20 billion Bitcoin, the market cap doesn't go up that much. So when I read that, I thought, yeah, okay, that's fine, but it would massively increase the price, wouldn't it? But whilst they're not side by side, so 20 billion isn't going to go onto the market cap, but there's still going to be 20 billion pounds worth or 20 billion dollars worth of money within the system there, isn't there? So the market cap is massively going to go up. I know market cap is price times amount, there's volume basically, isn't it? But the 20 billion has to be shown somewhere within the market, surely. So I didn't really get it. I was like, so if someone was to pay 20 billion in, even though it's at like 30k, the market cap's going to go through the roof, isn't it?
Well, no, the market cap will roughly go up by the 20 billion. And
that's what, yeah.
At the moment, the market cap for Bitcoin is about 750 billion.
Yeah.
So the reason why, if someone just market brought 20 billion instantly, the price would go crazy because the amount of people selling Bitcoin at the moment would not be 20 billion of it. So there's probably at any one time a couple of 100 million on sale of Bitcoin. And roughly there's a couple of 100 million per day of buying Bitcoin. So provided those two are about equal, the price stays the same. But then the second there's a bit more buyers than sellers, then the price starts to trickle upwards. But yeah, someone just market bought 20 billion, the price would go crazy high because it would take up all the liquidity. Everyone that wants to sell Bitcoin would have already sold it. So now they're trying to buy. So it'd be a very stupid thing to do, actually, to buy 20 million in one go, because you would end up buying Bitcoin crazy high because you'd run out of sellers. So ultimately, you would end up getting people to come in to try and sell your Bitcoin, because every single time Bitcoin went on the market, they eat it up. So the price would just rocket up crazy. So yeah, the market cap will go well above 20 billion higher, probably go more like 100 or 200 billion higher. But then quite quickly it would correct, because we would end up being at a stupidly high price off this market buy.
Everyone would sell.
So the person, yeah, exactly. So because you've gone so high, there's loads of people that in their heads want to sell at certain points, and you just rocketed. You probably take the price from 50k probably to about 200k. So you've now just gone right the way through, and now suddenly you'd be sat at 200k. So the last Bitcoin this person bought on the 20 billion buy, they would be buying 200k Bitcoin, which is 4x the price. But then the problem is, because they've taken it up so high, they would then suddenly run out of buy pressure, and now we're sat at 200k. And now there's a load of people that would be around that level going, oh, I've been waiting to sell at this price. Yeah. There's not many people that want to buy at that price. So what would happen is the sellers would far outweigh the buyers, and we would come crashing back down. The chances are we wouldn't come back down to 50k. We'd probably come down to like 60, 70, 80 around there. I'm just guessing. But yeah, that's why it all depends. Like, so if 20 billion came in over the course of a year, next to no change on Bitcoin, it just almost just gets lumped into the market cap. That's only, well, it's about 2%, 3% of the entire market. So it doesn't even matter. So we barely notice a change in the price of Bitcoin. But if they bought it all in 1 minute, then we'd see a huge price increase. If anyone was 20 billion, wouldn't be stupid enough to buy it in one go. They would end up doing that. Yeah. It's just the same as if someone had 20 billion of Bitcoin and they wanted to sell it. You don't sell it all at once, because you would crash the price. And your last Bitcoin, you would be selling for like 3K a coin or something. And then the second you were done selling, now the opposite would happen. There's no sellers. No one wants to sell Bitcoin at 3K. You'd have all the buyers. And then we'd go shooting back up to 50. And the person that sold would be like, whoops, I sold loads of my coins at 80% discount. So you would be much better. If you're going to buy or sell that amount of money worth of Bitcoin, you plan it over a whole period of time and you buy like 10 million a day or something. It would take you forever to get 20 billion in, admittedly.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, so, if like El Salvador's and stuff like that want to adopt or have adopted, they're small, they're tiny. Let's go a bit bigger. So let's say governments for like America and Britain start thinking, you know what, we need to start lumping a bit in because we don't want to get to a point where we can get overrun by individuals, because that's what could happen very quickly. So they're going to have to buy at some point, aren't they? So it is definitely going to have that the 20 billion buy-in is probably not unrealistic when you think of how much money they would require in order to
that,
yeah. So this is something that is quite a likely thing to happen one day, especially America. You can imagine them just dropping $1 trillion.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, it's a good point, because at the moment we're essentially in retail and small companies are buying. If we fast forward a couple of years, once we're at a couple of 100,000, probably 500,000 of Bitcoin or something, that'll be when we get the country FOMO. And then they will be buying 20 million a day and it won't matter, because at that kind of price, at 500,000 a coin, our market cap now is, I don't know, I think it'd be around the 5 trillion mark, probably higher.
Is that all it'll be? Is that all it'll be?
Yeah.
I suppose you could work out, can you be, what, 20 million times?
Actually, no, I think it's actually about 10 trillion.
So like,
500K is around the 10 trillion.
Yeah, and there'd be about 20 million Bitcoin out by then, wouldn't there?
Yeah. So once we're at 10 trillion, if someone wanted to buy 20 billion and you're a country, that's just normal now. That's a normal market buy. That would barely impact the price. The only reason it would impact the price today is because the price of Bitcoin is so cheap, just at 50K.
Yeah.
Once we're at 500K, buying 20 billion would just be absorbed.
I'm too thick. There's a lot of zeros there.
Oh yeah, it's silly. Once we get to
10 trillion, it must be 10 trillion if it gets to 500K.
Yeah, I think it's 10 zeros, isn't it? 10 trillion.
Yeah, and this is another question I've got then. So if I'm listening to pods and I'm just doing a bit more like lateral thinking about it, we say that gold's got 11 trillion stacked in it as a market cap, don't we?
Yeah.
And we've seen it was probably 12, 13 at one point. Bitcoin was nothing. That's gone down to 11. Obviously, we know where we are here. We're just shy of $1 trillion. Obviously, there's a lot of stock in some of the cyber tech companies. So what is the maximum market cap you could have? Like, because of like obviously all the talk of the money print to go in, what is the true wealth of the world? Is there such a thing? Like, if we said what is Bitcoin's market cap? Is it 20 trillion? Is it a billion trillion? Like, what? How do we know this? Like, what is this is good. It's like saying what happens after you die sort of question. It hurts my head. Like, what is the value of money in the world? But then I can kind of answer that question as well, because when sterling, pounds, gold, all that dollars don't count for anything, the market cap will be 21 million Bitcoin, won't it? Is that correct? Yeah. And then when you would put money, your Bitcoin, into things like, I don't know, let's say Amazon, it would be instead of the market cap saying, I think they've got like, I don't know, 2 trillion or something. I can't remember what their market cap is. But wouldn't it be like Bitcoin? It'd be like 200 Bitcoin. Would that be their new market cap?
Yes.
Is that how it would look?
The reason why all this stuff breaks down is because it's trying to, like, say, denominate the world's GDP in Zimbabwe dollars. So at the moment, that Zimbabwe dollar's hyperinflated. So $100 trillion note gets you a loaf of bread. Yeah. So this is why people say like the market cap or the top price of Bitcoin, people aren't joking when they say it's infinity. Because even today, if you price Bitcoin in Zimbabwe dollars, it is infinity. There's no one that will trade any Bitcoin for one of their notes. It's garbage. Even their own country don't use it. They use dollars instead.
Of course.
The end game for this is the US dollar and the pound is going to do the same thing. They're going to hyperinflate. So $100 trillion won't buy you any Bitcoin. So essentially the price of Bitcoin will be infinity. But at the moment, I just Googled it then, but the GDP for the entire world at the moment is currently 80 trillion.
80 trillion. Wow, that's not
Yeah.
that much.
No.
Obviously, don't get me wrong, that's a ridiculous number. But when we're talking gold's got that much, and if you think we're already 180th almost in, aren't we?
Yeah, I think I'm right with that anyway. But yeah, but roughly the price of Bitcoin really, if you assume that the US dollar stays about the same, if you just it won't, if you assume the spending power of a dollar is the same now, and it will be when Bitcoin hits hyper Bitcoinization, the price of a Bitcoin will be roughly worth $15 million per coin.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the maximum price, really. You can't go any higher than that because that's everything then. So if you're buying at 14 million a coin, just know you've only got 10% gains left. But by then you'll be rushing in at 14 million a coin
to get some.
Because at the time, the reason why you'll be panicking is the fact that you've just watched your entire life savings erode, and your 50 grand that you had in the bank is now has a spending power of £1,000. So you'll be desperate to save that £1,000 worth of spending power and just get it into something that's holding its value. So just getting 10%, you'll be ecstatic with that because you've already lost the majority.
Oh, think about it now. You're chuffed if you get 0.1%.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's banks in Europe now. If you live in, I think it's Holland or Denmark, they have 0.5% interest now. So they take money for you holding your money there.
Say again, they do what?
They have negative interest rates, minus 0.5. So every it's not even this isn't even like inflation where at least they keep your money the same value, but it can't buy as much. That's like the really bad way of doing it. But if you had a grand in there, like next time you come in, what is it? What 10% is 100. So it'd be
you lose 50 quid.
Fiver. So yeah, so every year your money goes down a fiver of your £1,000. You log in next year, it says 995. Next year, like 990. It's going down.
That's insane. Well, that's making you want to spend it and put it into hard assets, isn't it? Even if they're depreciating assets, that's what you're going to do, isn't it? There's literally no point in having anything more than your boiler and your car breakdown in the bank, is there?
Yeah, they're basically charging you to basically just look after your money instead of leaving it in your house. But yeah, you might as well leave it in your house because at least you don't get negative interest rates if it's under the pillow.
Oh, that's insane. I did not know Holland were doing that. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, because weirdly, I found that out because Elon has various Tesla HQs around the world. So they hold money in local currencies because obviously he's got, I think he's got obviously sell Teslas in Holland. And yeah, so the money they hold in that bank account loses money. So he has to get out of Holland as quickly as possible and get it into a bank account that has positive interest rates because it's just ridiculous. Like they're holding tens of millions of pounds worth of their currency and they're charging him to leave it there, even though they're still taking that money and investing it and gambling it and by making 10, 20% a year gains on his money. They're charging him to lend his money to them so they can invest it and make millions for themselves. The banks just, they're not even pretending.
What are the taxation laws over there?
I have no idea why.
Because if they're better than here, it'd be cheaper to send your money over there still anyway. You wouldn't lose 40% of it.
I'm pretty sure they still have cap gains and all that stuff. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's balmy, man. But yeah, one of the things that I was talking about last night or the night before was, so you know what you were just saying then about one day, well, I say one day, it's going to happen over a long period of time, but your money that you've saved up or your stock shares or your pension stuff will become kind of frozen and not have anything in it. So there's going to be a lot of people that potentially could get absolutely wrecked. And whilst you could take the stance, it's your fault, you've had your opportunity. It's probably been probably mainstream by that time, and it'd be quite people just being too self-righteous and not wanting to put money in at a high level because they could have done it a lot longer ago and a lot cheaper. It's going to ruin a lot of people, isn't it? And so basically we talk about Bitcoin fixing the world, fix money, fix the world.
Yep.
Which, whilst that is true, there's a lot of problems that it will bring with that, with regards to potentially your healthcare side of things and obviously the government, the public sector, because potentially you won't get as much in, and there might be society divides a bit more because people can be loaded, some people can be absolutely poor as hell, aren't they? And there'd be potentially some really quite rich, well-off people that have been just too stupid and not salty tears, if you like, the salty no coiners. They're going to potentially have nothing, and they're going to be used to having quite a lot. Now, that is going to be quite hard to see, I guess. Whereas you could laugh about it behind you, you know, you shake your head.
Is that any different to where we are right now?
Do you not think? But the thing is, the difference is people have got a lot, and they might have put all their savings, and it could be in their 80s, and then just have everything basically liquidated beneath them.
Yeah. So in reality, right, this number one, the scenario you describe is what we are with what we live in right now. Yeah, you talk about a load of rich people and then a load of poor people being salty and don't feel that the people that have got it didn't earn it. Well, guess what? In today's world, they're bang on right. A lot of the people that are just close to the money printer or have a lot of political influence, they're the ones close to the money printer. They're the billionaires. They did not earn that money. They steal it from you via inflation. Completely corrupt. And there's no way, unless you're super good at being an entrepreneur and you can build a big business, just earning a wage, you will never be rich, pretty much, because inflation will keep ahead of you. The cost of living keeps going up. And as we've discussed before, it keeps getting worse generation to generation because they get addicted to this money printer. So the kids coming through now, I feel so sorry for them. If they don't know, if their parents don't know about Bitcoin, they are so screwed because the fees on university are going sky high. House prices continue to go up. Wages are not going up. If anything, competitiveness for jobs is going up as we get more and more automation. The number of jobs is going down, yet the price of everything else is going up. So they're gonna, if anything, there's going to be a wage squeeze, and people are going to they're going to want to pay people less because there's so much competition for places. So just so you know, that the current scenario is exactly what you described, and likely that it's not going to particularly change whether we've got Bitcoin or not. But number two, is Bitcoin the reason why this is going to end up bad and people are going to lose everything? No, people are going to lose everything whether Bitcoin exists or not. Go and ask the people in Zimbabwe, the people in Afghanistan, the people in Venezuela. They lost everything when the banks and their governments lost control of their currency. They lost everything. And for them, they didn't know what the solution was. And the solution was to hedge your money into Bitcoin and then potentially take some of what you lost and take it with you and try and restart, even though your government and your bank gambled your money and lost it all. So our argument right here is the world is so broken, and America and Britain, most people have no inclination to think that what happened in Afghanistan literally last week, where the Taliban took over and stole all the money. Obviously, we won't have as a violent property takeover as that, but we're still going to lose control of our money. It's going to hyperinflate, and all the pensions are going to go, and all your life savings are going to go, and they're going to steal your money. That is categorically going to happen. So you can choose to get wrecked, or you can choose to opt out of the system early before it gets wrecked and save some of your wealth into Bitcoin. So using the whole analogy of the Titanic and the lifeboat again, we're all on the Titanic, and at the moment, the captain of the ship is telling us everything's fine. He's telling us the financial system that we're on is absolutely fine. But there's some Bitcoiners down in the water yelling at you, look at the side of the boat. Look at the side of the boat, guys. And if you look over, you see a massive hole in the boat and water is piling in. And we're pointing at it going, look, and that's the money printer. You're up there and they're telling you everything's fine, but it's not. Look, the water is piling in. If you stay on that ship for much longer, you're going to go down with the ship and you're going to get wrecked. Your financial wealth is going to literally sink with you and you're going to have nothing. Take what you have right now, jump into this life raft and we can get away. So Bitcoin is the life raft. I think what people get confused with is they think Bitcoin in this analogy is the iceberg, and Bitcoin smashed into the ship and we caused the problem and now we're running off of all the money. No, we're not stealing fucking anything. If Bitcoin does not have a use case, if the money works, if the pound or the dollar is good money, then we don't have a use case. If they all stopped printing money tomorrow and just went, we apologize, we're going to put a limit on the number of dollars and number of pounds. It's going to be 21 trillion or whatever number they want to make. And we're not going to stop inflation. Bitcoin dies. That's one of the use cases where Bitcoin is no longer useful, because suddenly having a hard cap and having it decentralized doesn't matter, because we now have a stable pound. The argument is they will never stop printing because they've got so far into debt. They can't afford to pay the bills. There's not enough tax to keep the current system going. So they have to print to keep the NHS, the war machine, and all that going. The second they stop printing, suddenly there's not enough money to keep all these services going. So they have to keep printing, and they have to keep printing more and more and more because they're devaluing their own money. So each time they print what 1 billion did today, they have to print 2 billion tomorrow. So this is the argument, right? And if you feel sad about that current world where everyone's going to lose everything, yeah, you should feel sad. It fucking sucks. It's why Bitcoiners are so passionate and so angry, and we hate the state so much, because they're going to steal from people, your grandma, your granddad, your future children. They are stealing from them. And when it all goes pop, they're not going to suffer because they know what they're doing. They have countless houses. So whenever the economy recovers, their 30 houses they've got will still be worth 30 houses, right? Whereas you that lives in one, you can't realize that wealth in your house because you got to fucking live in it. What you need is money on top of the house. And that's what you put money to one side for a rainy day, just in case you lost your job or your life savings for your retirement. That is what's going to go up in smoke. And that is fucking disgusting. And every Bitcoiner wish it didn't happen. And on a Bitcoin standard, it won't happen again. That's all we can promise. It won't happen again. But we need to get onto a Bitcoin standard first. And the more people we can educate to get onto a Bitcoin standard means when it all goes bang, they won't be hurt. We're trying to save as many people as we can.
But the more people that get involved, the fairer the distribution technically will be. Whilst it's not fair because you have to buy it still, but it'll be fairer split than just a handful of people having it. Now, I think the answer is broken already. Bitcoin's a solution. So yeah, I think more what the point was is it's exciting thinking about the future of having a decent stash and going out, think about our lives, how good it's going to be. I think the reverse of that is whilst you're celebrating. I think that was more the point. Isn't it a bit sad that there's a lot of people going to be really wrecked? And it is very sad. It is. And I think you make a good point. You guys are so passionate, and it is quite a lot of, I considered it anger for a while, but it's passion of hatred and almost insulting, saying that you're taking it away when it's not. Bitcoin's the problem. And I think, very interestingly, imagine if the government did tomorrow come out and say that, I wouldn't believe them. But if they did say we're going to cap this spend or the print, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? I think everyone would just,
like I said, they can't.
Yeah, they're in too deep.
Like the amount of money they collect in tax is like about 20% of the money they need to run the governments that they've built. So if they were to suddenly do it, they would have to also come in and go, we're cutting 80% of public spending. So, you know, all the devastation that you're really worried about in the health service and all that kind of crap, it would have to happen anyway. They would have to scale back everything by 80% just to be able to function. So they don't want to do it because who's going to vote for that policy? Which prime minister is going to stand up going, I'm cutting costs by 80% because we're going on to a fixed standard. And we've had, in the UK, we've had 80 years of it. In America, we've had 50 years of it, where they've been pitching inflation is a necessary evil. Quantitative easing stimulates the economy. Every economist has always been telling us printing money is good. They would have to admit they've been lying for decades and then suddenly going on to a fixed supply. And then the problem is that new politician that came in, he couldn't do anything. All his policies would have to be is, I am doing nothing new. I'm cutting 80% of the stuff you like. I'm cutting it because that's how big the government should be. And there's going to be huge holes in the police, in the army, in the NHS, in everything, in schools. But what we're going to do is in those holes, we're going to let private companies pop up and they will take the slack on. And we won't do that now. The private sector will instead. And that's going to cause a whole host of disruption. Everyone's going to go, that sounds crazy. Standards are obviously going to drop. And of course they will. But that person would be actually fixing, they'd actually be resetting us onto a proper, sensible economic model. No politician is ever going to have the bollocks to do it. And if any politician got anywhere near being able to roll that policy out, I can guarantee that person will just get cancelled.
A car crash.
Yeah, he'll mysteriously have a heart attack or something. Because there's no way that because the last politician that I know of that tried to do this was JFK. He tried to do this. I think it's in the 50s, might be in the 60s. He tried to do. He was trying to get off the, or he was actually trying at the time they were pressuring him to come off the gold standard, and he didn't want to do it. He got mysteriously shot in the head from about a mile away by a guy that never shot a gun before. So he got assassinated. The next president that came in was Nixon. First thing he did, coming off the gold standard. As in 1971. So, yeah, politicians that don't play ball,
that's interesting.
They end up just getting their back of their heads just explode.
You're a historian.
Well, this is what Bitcoin forces you to do.
You go and search for past history. Well, we all, you know what we did though when we went through school, we all went back and looked at how this impacted on the world and da 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 da. It's the same principle, isn't it? We look back now and go, but with a new mindset, you think, has this happened before? Yes, it has. There you go, evidence, boom. And you're not making assassination about it. Interestingly, when we were talking about about money and stuff, and I was listening to the 4B's pod the other day when I was driving back, and it was at the point where it was, if you just look around the roads now, despite us all giving out a furlough for like the last 2 years, we're in an absolute crisis of money. Everyone's moving out, which I can guarantee I've never known so many of my friends and acquaintances to be moving house in the last 6 months. I never seen so many for sale signs around my new build estate, and the amount of new cars that everyone's buying. So everybody is loaded. Everyone's going on holidays. Lowly banded staff that I know are all going on nice foreign holidays because they go, oh, I haven't spent anything for ages. Isn't that insane?
Of course it is.
And the leveraging of debt ultimately, isn't it? Because debt's just, it's normal, isn't it? It's a normal part of life now.
Yeah. Well, what we should be seeing right now is similar to what happened after like World War One, which is a recession. Like there's a lack of jobs, there's a lack of money. People have been sat at home for pretty much 2 years now, and companies should have gone under. Companies shouldn't be producing very much. They haven't got too many customers, and people haven't been paid for 2 years, so they're skint. And we should be coming out and really having to really focus on how the hell do we get people back into work, and trying to get wages back up to what they need to be. And we should nearly be on rations, where production of food has kind of stopped, but we're doing the opposite. Everyone's living a life of Riley because wages didn't stop. Companies didn't suffer because the government printed money out of thin air, gave the companies bailouts and gave furlough to everyone. And obviously their costs all went to zero. So even though their furlough money was only 80%, they saved more than 20% worth of costs. So they're actually richer than they should be. And yes, so people are spending like crazy. And we mentioned it on the pod, right? But we've seen this before. Like big societies collapse when they get too rich, fat and lazy, and they get complacent. That is when they fall. They don't fall when you're on your knees. That's when you would think that, oh, someone's struggling, they're on their knees, they're about to die. It's like, weirdly, no. Nations that are on their knees fight. And they like the entrepreneurial spirit will come out of people because the people need to feed their families, and people work harder than ever to get out of the poverty they're in. Once you're in this rarefied atmosphere of you got your Netflix, you got your Deliveroo, you got your nice BM on the drive, you're working at home, fucking living on fucking 50K. No one is, the amount of work that is being done is so little, and the amount of reward that's coming in is so high. This is when the competition come in and it just blows it to pieces. And you've only got to look over across the water. Who's the competition to the west? It is China. China did not lock down. They did not do any of this. They did not do hardly any money printing. They kept their people working. That's why Amazon still has products to sell. They are working really hard. And if they weren't already ahead of us, now they're 2 years ahead in innovation and in productivity. They are working their fucking asses off. And most of their people are in poverty, which whilst we look at that and go, that's disgusting, still, it means those people are working hard, which means they're a threat to people that aren't. So that is ultimately where the wealth is going to go. That is where the value in the world is being created. the majority is being in China. If you just switched off the UK tomorrow, like I'm not even sure the world would notice. No one does anything here. Everyone works, sits at home, sending emails to each other. That is not adding value to the world. Emails do not equal value. If we're paying everyone 50 grand a year to sit at home sending emails to each other and doing fucking Zoom calls, this isn't value. This is bollocks. And these are all the signs of a society about to collapse. So
interesting.
Not a good sign.
You've just completely ruined my life. That's basically what I do.
I know it's what I did. It's what I did for a career as well. And I fucking hate the fact they did it. Which is why I quit and wanted to work in Bitcoin instead, because I feel like I'm adding value to the world by educating on Bitcoin instead of sending fucking emails to morons.
I can't say that because I get cancelled.
I can, because they're all ex-colleagues. Anyone listening to this that was my colleague, I'm not talking about you. You're a good guy. Everyone else was the moron.
I like that. But it's also funny how you also said about gardens getting done up and stuff like that.
Yeah, Mr. Fucking done your garden up over there, dickhead.
Oh yeah, did you see how much it cost me though?
No,
I did it all myself. No, it cost like 200 quid.
Okay, a little more than that from what I can see from the pictures. Looks great, by the way.
Yeah, it's got. Thank you. Yeah, it's Holly's vision. So basically, we've got some free pallets from across the road who were getting the garden done properly. So borrowed them, painted them with paint that was left over from the fence. Holly brought some like little ribbons and some chains and a light switch. We just put that on, so that's against the fence. Bought some fence panels, which are like obviously about a foot high, just to break it off. 3 bags of bark with some line underneath it. And then, to be fair, the money went into the kitchen and the little basin thing, which was from Aldi. And I think they were about 150 quid. That was the way the money went. And then down the bottom end, it was a few planters. And then that trellis thing, that arch, 15 quid for B&M.
So Holly went. It's adding up to about 200,000 sats, which is.
I know, to be fair, that will.
Person's allocation of Bitcoin, and you just spunked it on your garden. Hope it's worth it.
It's going to be funny. We're going to look back, aren't we, in 5 years and go, that was like a 400 grand garden.
Yeah, we did it on the cheap. It only cost 400 grand.
Put on Holly and bagging.
Nah, of course, this is all about like the balance of time preference. And
yeah.
If you'd gone off and gone all professional and got a freaking architect in and that have
well,
done
next door's nine grand for now.
Done the same thing, couldn't you? But you could have spent probably saying 10x, probably more like 20 or 30x if you'd got a professional in. They'd have done it all, and it probably would have looked like 30% better. Like, so you got a 30% kind of less, but you saved 90% of the spend. So it's easy. And obviously, you probably love it more because you did it. You did every single piece instead of having a load of like professionals come in and just do it all, and then you just kind of like turn up one day and go, "All right, this looks awesome," but I didn't do any of it. I think it's always so much more rewarding when you do it yourself.
It really is, and I think you point on a really good topic there. With it's about time preference, and you can't go through your life because you could just drop dead. We see people dying all the time, and you have to enjoy it and let your kids not have too much of a sheltered upbringing. They need to have some fun, don't they?
Absolutely.
But again, it's weighing that off, and I still say, because obviously the pull is to take the kids away to like Lapland at Christmas, to Disney, and obviously we have got the potential to do that. But by not doing it right now, we can take away for 6 weeks to Australia in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, whatever the time frame is. But that will be better than a long weekend away somewhere like that, costing the same.
Yeah, the whole point of protecting your wealth is to be able to spend it on yourself and your family and live a better quality of life. That is the entire point. Just at the moment, we're in this really horrible, like, cause I think once your kids grow up and like their kids, they'll be fine because like the price appreciation of Bitcoin will be done. We're in that kind of good stage where the gains are huge, but it does mean every single pound you spend, like whenever I spend £1, I see it as £100. Like, oh fuck. Because you got to do that because that's what's happening. That pound could be in Bitcoin and then it's going to be £100 in like 5 years' time. So it's constantly thinking like that, but then it's also good because you can get your money into that and you're going to 100x and it's going to be happy days. So it just makes it tougher to spend money. But
that's right.
Up to you, obviously your kids are only 2 and 3 and all that once. So if they want like something for the garden and they £200, that's If you like, that's one. If you just stay in one hotel, it's £200 a night. So
Yeah, that's right.
You spent like a hotel stay, but doing up your garden, which is going to be there forever. So that's easily like a whole return on investment thing. If you were to do it as a business plan, it's like
it's not bad, is it?
No brainer. Like, how much value do I get for £200? Well, they're going to like this for like 3 years until they grow out of it. Like 3 years of £200. That's like £200 one night. You could almost justify and go, yeah, it's fine. He's going to love the show or whatever he sees. But when you go £200 for 3 years, well,
although it might end up killing Jesse because he eats the back.
I did see the mud kitchen bit. I'm like, they are going to be eating a lot of mud, so that might
show their
preference on their lives.
And what was I going to say about so with the money side of things, because I can see that in myself happening, and it's a dangerous game to start thinking about every bit of money you've got is equivalent to Bitcoin, because you're absolutely right. It's a one-off opportunity. It's the Bitcoin rush, isn't it, where stacking now is going to be massive in the future, but you've still got to live a decent life now, and you work hard. You have to enjoy your life, so you can't just put a cap on it. So the way of getting around that is like you do with what we did before Bitcoin, was you'd always put a few quid into your savings, and then you'd know what you're allowed to spend. Just do the same, and that's what we do. So it allows you to be at peace with what you're doing. And again, that's the key. And that's what I do every month. It's exactly the same, and it goes back to the fundamentals of DCA. And DCA, you never regret it, will you?
Yeah, you nailed it. All you got to do is make sure you're aware of what you're doing. So many people would take their money and they'll spend it and just try and forget it, and they'll forget the things they spend. You just have to know that that garden, you think it cost £200. In reality, it didn't. It cost 20 grand, because that's what that £200 could have done in Bitcoin over the next 10 years. So in reality, what you've done there is you've stolen 20 grand from your children. So
cheers, Dad.
You've got to be comfortable with that decision and go, I wanted to spend it on improving your childhood for a couple of years with the little mud garden and all that. Yeah. And I'm at peace with it.
Yes.
And provided you are, because you're aware of it all. Too many people are not aware, and they just spend willy-nilly and just kind of put their head in the sand to a certain extent and just hope that it's going to be fine in 10 years' time. But provided you're at least just having that little thing on your shoulder going, you probably shouldn't be doing this. Could you do it cheaper? Which I think ultimately that's what's led you to what you did it for 200 quid. I reckon if you were doing this 5 years ago, and or if I didn't exist, you'd have probably spent 2 or 3 grand on that same bit of garden.
Oh, damn right.
Almost guaranteed, because all your neighbors are doing it. So your like input would have been, oh, your garden looks great. How did you do that? Oh, my mate Dave does it. Like, do you want him his card? You'll come around, and you'll be like, well, I want a garden as good as theirs, but I'll make it a little better, actually. I want a little fountain over here and And you probably spent like 4 grand because they spent 3. So I'm like, I'm up at that. Like, so when they come around, they'll see that I've upped it a little bit. And it's all keeping up with the Joneses. And you wouldn't even thought, like, you're kind of doing there is you're competing with your neighbors, which in 20 years' time, those neighbors won't be there. Like, you won't probably be living in the same house. Like, so all that competition was worthless. But what you're thinking at the moment instead is, in 20 years' time, can I look my kids in the eye and go, do they have enough to carry on with? And you're kind of going, yeah, if I spend this money, I do. And that's the right thing to be thinking, not, is my garden better than his garden? And I need to spend more. You're just going, how can I improve my kid's life on the cheapest budget possible? Because I want to keep as much money into sats as I can. Yeah. Whilst we're through a once in every 500 years evolution of money. And I'm lucky enough to be in on year 12. This is crazy early. So the first 50 years where all the gains are made, and we have 450 years of just flat good money. This is this is the time to be stacking sats. But yeah, you've got the right mindset, and hopefully, the more and more people that listen to Bitcoin podcasts and maybe this podcast,
pick up,
start to get a different time preference, and just check yourself. That's the main thing. And if you want to go and spend 4 grand in your garden, by the way, do it. Just know that you just understand that what you did, and provided you're happy with the decision and you get 4 grand worth of, well, it wouldn't be 4 grand, it's going to be 400 grand worth of value out of that, do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows? Like I said, you might die tomorrow. You get run over by a bus. So
you might get a cap in your head.
Yeah, you might make some politician might watch your podcast and want you out of the way.
At least you don't give much away in your house. There's not a lot of evidence. There's a fish tank and a few pictures.
I'm on the electoral roll. It's Mr. All In. First name Mr. Second name All In.
That's funny. So yeah, that's decent. I've been a good pod back after a few weeks off. So happy days. I'm gonna go and get another BM. I think get a bit more debt.
No, BMW, yeah. Anyway,
got one of them as well. You basically, if you rewind this, listen to what your analogy of the person that you don't think's right. You've actually just highlighted me, by the way. Maybe my BM is 10 years old, and it was a 3.
The thing is that you do all these things, but like you did a lot of them badly in the first stage. But then your latest ones, you've done the decisions on the outside look bad. We've done them all on the cheap, so it's like you're actually being smart about it. So I don't mind like if people do it smartly. Like I drive an Audi. It's not. I admit that was the worst financial decision I ever made. But at the time, I just want to do it. So fuck it. And if you can afford it and you've got the money, then you can do it. But so you can't judge anyone for their life. It's just be happy with your decisions. Provided you can stick with decisions, then you're all good. Just don't regret it in 20, 30 years time when you're there and you're having a lot of fun being poor and all your mates who bought Bitcoin are sitting on their own private islands fucking living it up.
Yeah. Well, we'll be in your shipyard, but your shipping container bunker, drinking salty tears.
You'll be buying a boat that lives inside my boat.
I'll be cleaning your swimming pool. Have fun staying poor.
See you later, boy.
Later, bro.